bars in a rave. Man, I go hard like Santan.
Hello and welcome to another Touchline Gunners podcast. It's your boy Dankoogs on hosting duty. Back again, and I'm joined by my good friends Sushinio. How you doing, my man?
I'm good, brother. I'm good. Another day, another dollar. Enjoying.
Yeah, another day. Releasing the group chats to the TL. Yeah, I see you, son. I see you, son. No, I've never been at so many times in one day by the Touchline Gunners account, TG account. I was like, what's going on today? And my notifications were going off.
I only sent one, the others weren't me.
Yeah.
I only sent the screenshot.
My notifications were going off. But man wanted to tussle with me, man. Man wanted to tussle with me. So, Mr. Shabs, we've also got you on the pod today. How you doing, my man?
I'm all good, man. I missed a lot of the daytime action, so I'm here ready to play my part for the TG community, man. Let's get cracking.
Yeah. Today it was a busy. It was an interesting day, to be honest. I think it went from 0 to 100. I think very, very quickly. There was people crashing out in the morning, people crashing out in the afternoon, people crashing out in the evening. Man, that's kind of the way that I like it. To be honest, it keeps the juices flowing, keeps the blood pumping. Do you know what I mean? Keeps me entertained, to be honest. But I want to start with just a reminder for you guys. We've been putting out a number of video scouting pieces on the Patreon. For good reasons, we've had to push some of our scheduling further down because we're going to be launching a Christian Norgaard scouting report that should come out on Friday for you guys. Whether I will be part of that scouting piece or not remains to be seen, to be honest. But that will definitely be coming out because I think this is a guy that maybe people have a general opinion about watching him for Brentford. Maybe you don't know exactly how good he is. Maybe you think he's of a certain level and you just want to confirm. But that will be one to watch, man, because I don't think that's a signing that people necessarily had down for Arsenal at the start of the window. But it seems like the club have identified him and moved very, very quickly to get that deal done. So that scouting report will be out before the weekend for you guys to get stuck into, and then we'll start again on some of our other loose links at the top of the week next week. So I think that is probably a good place to start. But I want to talk about the exiting player first before we talk about incomings, right? Because I think that signing essentially is happening because TP5, Thomas Partey, looks like he's leaving the club on a free transfer. And to say the least, right, what I would say is I am incredibly disappointed with how that signing has transpired from, I think, 5 years ago, COVID times, when we were signing him. If you told me in 5 years, this is the level of performance, the sort of the injury history, etc., that we'd get from Thomas Partey, I'll be severely, severely disappointed for the price that we paid for him, lump sum cash down, So even if the, 45 million pounds, I think it was 50 million euro at the time, not that high a transfer fee, but when you consider the financial outlay for it, the 200k per week, I'm so glad to see the back of him. I'm not going to lie to you, man. I'm not going to lie. So, German, I'll come to you first. Tell me your thoughts on the departing Thomas Partey.
I'm glad to see the back of him. Pause. I think it was a necessary maneuver. Him leaving the club. I think when you look at the signing in totality, and I think everyone was excited when he came in, and he started, I think, a bit slow, but he had that great game at Old Trafford. Then he had injury issues in his first season. He had sort of that consistency injury issue in his first season, struggling to find his feet a bit. But you could see the quality when he was playing, and you thought, okay, this is going to be a good player for us. And then we obviously had that's very strong season, or I'd say about 70% of the season. He was very good with Xhaka and Odegaard in midfield, and they played some great football. And I think that's probably the best he's played for us for a sustained period of time. And then we had I think we had Saliba go down in that season, and I really didn't like the way Partey ended that season. I think people give him the full season and credit him for the full season, say he played well. I do not think so. I think he really packed it in the run-in. He was one of the poor players in the run-in. He had to actually get taken out of the team in the end. I think he was one of the culprits of why we capitulated, alongside with obviously Tomiyasu and Saliba getting injured. He's someone that I think contributed to the downfall, to be honest. And then the next season, it was just like, okay, can we replicate what we did last season? Can we keep the right elements fit? Got Rice coming into midfield. What happens is the guy is injured basically for 80% of the season. I don't know the exact numbers, but he was injured for the majority of the season. And I actually felt like the team were better in that season when he didn't play. So I felt like, maybe he's not really that necessary anymore, given what I've just seen from the team. We've just went machine for machine with City. We lost up marginally on the title. We had, I think, straightest run-in that we've had in many years. So I felt like, the need for Partey is dwindling. Granted, he then came back contract year. Basically was available all season. And I think there's been mixed sort of feedback of what people think about the season from him. But since I think me and you have probably been on the same side, Cooks, on this since about November, I've been like, this Partey guy, man, it's what he's doing is not right. Like, he'll have spells in the game where he plays well, then he have very, very, very poor spells. I did think he cost us in a number of games. I haven't been happy with him last season. And when I found out that we might be renewing him, I thought this is, in my opinion, a bad move, renewing him. At first there was reduced terms, then it was the same terms. I was like, I don't think he deserves the same terms. And I know people were saying they don't see players renewing on reduced terms or the same terms. Usually in bigger terms. He doesn't deserve an increase in wage. He's been unavailable and he's been quite inconsistent apart from 1 year. This is the last season, the only season when he was fully available, and his performances haven't matched for what we needed. So I'm happy for that he's leaving. I think financially it would have been too big. And then from a sporting point of view, I just didn't believe in the player anymore to deliver. And key moments, and that's just off the top of my head. The PSG yellow card is just from a senior player. It's just ridiculous stuff. Like, honestly, it's just ridiculous stuff. The Man City game where we 2-1 up in the dying moments. All he has to do is stay in position where he is. Havertz and I think Ben White were covering Grealish from crossing the ball in. Partey runs over, making it a 3v1. Basically clearing the space for Kovacic to have a shot, which then leads to the goal. The Aston Villa game where we had 2-0 up, comfortable. Cooks, we were in the stadium for that game. We were talking about how we were balling and Miles Lewis-Skelly's beating out Morgan Rogers. Next thing I know, 2 goals conceded. Both goals because of Thomas Partey. And you mentioned the Chelsea game in the group chat, and I haven't even put effort into doing any research. It's just off the top of my head. I just think like his time was up, and I'm glad he be out the door in 5 days, 5-6 days. So yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. To be honest, because I feel like you even look at the PSG game where we're 1-0 down in the tie. You've missed the first leg because of a stupid yellow card against Real Madrid. And whatever you can say, these things happen. I don't think they should for an experienced player. You're the only one who's lost your head. There's an 18-year-old playing on the pitch. They were trying to get under people's skin that day. You're supposed to be the senior pro, the senior professional. He's been there, done it all. How many times have you played against Real Madrid in your career? Played at the Bernabeu several times. You're the one that gets a yellow card. Like, it just shows a lack of maturity, lack of common sense, to be honest. And then in the second leg, you're talking about poor defensive header out to Fabian Ruiz. And then the third goal that they score, just a rubbish clearance. There's countless games where you just feel like the guy was playing against us defensively. I think there's a clip circulating the TL. You talk about Thomas Partey defending transitions this season, and it's the kind of stuff that people were insulting Jorginho for, where you see players just sprinting away from him, running past him, this, that, and the other. And for me, I think the fact that I was very actually disappointed that the club even tried to renew him. To be honest, because I thought, before you even get into the footballing reasons, it's just been a bit of a cloud around this guy in terms of off the field stuff for a number of years, right? And this allows the club to, essentially have a clean break. You can just distance yourself from any sort of controversy, and I think it's a real black mark against the hierarchy that they didn't necessarily gauge the mood on that topic. In trying to get this guy to stay. And I think he's flipping cheeky, I'm sorry, for even trying to get a pay rise. Considering his age, considering his injury record, before you even get into performances, I think it's absolutely insane. So I'm glad the club, didn't bend over and didn't relent to, his requests, because I think that would have just been pretty much a travesty, to be honest. And I think it's a clean break. So, that is one of the things that I wanted to happen this window, that Partey would leave. So I think that is, definitely a good thing if I'm analysing, outgoings for this window. So Shabs, I'll let you close up on that, and then you can start probably on your thoughts on the guy who's now incoming in Christian Norgaard.
Yeah, Partey, it's the right time. I've been saying it for a little while. I'm not alone in my thoughts. I think we would have been absolutely stupid. I think we were stupid to attempt to renew, to be honest with you. I think for footballing and non-footballing reasons, it was just the correct opportunity to let him go. I feel like I'm very critical about the club and how we fail to recognise the right time to let players go in general. So this is not a point that's specific to Partey, but I feel like we've only gone in for Norgaard because we knew the direction of travel with Partey, because Partey was holding out. So I can't even say, yeah, well done to the club, because it doesn't look like we were front-footed. It looks like we tried to, like, we would have been happy to keep him on the same terms. It would have been unlikely that we would have retained him on reduced terms, but we would have been happy to keep him on the same terms. And I just think it had everything wrong written all over it, just because of a lot of the on-field stuff, which, to be fair, I think, the club have done very well to, not very well, but the club have managed that situation. I don't want to advocate for the club either. I think they've managed that situation, or ignored that situation even, really, and kind of said, these matters are pending. We're not quite sure. Let's just kind of let's just keep the player in the team. Let's just keep using him. Let's keep utilizing him. And there are people more qualified than I am to say whether that was right morally or sporting wise or whatnot. I don't really want to delve into that too much, but I also don't want to ignore it. So that was that. And then when you look at his availability or lack of availability throughout the duration of his contract, and the fact that all of a sudden within his final season, he's almost ever present. For me, I just think that was a complete piss take. A complete piss take, if I'm being honest with you. How many other ways can you spell playing for a new contract? And then yesterday, I don't know if you man saw it, but I definitely saw him look like he was doing some warm weather individual training, going through the paces, looking a little bit lean, if I do say so. So he's shaping up for a move to another club to get the bag. And then I'll be surprised if he doesn't go that, like, as soon as he gets that contract, couple games in, I'll be surprised if he doesn't, sit out with an injury And that's it. So he's looking for the next big paycheck to kind of see out the remainder of his playing days. At which point, I'd be very surprised as to why he doesn't just go Saudi. But yeah, I think it's the right thing for us to do. Finally, I think whether our hand has been forced or not, I'm kind of glad at this juncture to see him leaving. And yeah, man, like I do think that there were points in the season gone where he was our best or one of our best midfield performers, and I'm on record as saying that a couple of times. I don't think I'm wrong in that. I think that was probably more of an indictment on how bad our midfielders were last season, with the exception of Rice. But Partey, I do think, you know, he's absolutely made some mistakes. There were many mistakes made. A lot of what German Dan said you can cite as bad individual errors. But I do think as a team, defensively, last season, we didn't look as sturdy as we have looked in other seasons as well. I think some of those things you can rightly place the blame solely on Partey. I think some of the other things can't be solely placed on him. I think we have to take collective responsibility for them. But yeah, there were definitely some defensive lapses. And he looks like a player who is past it in terms of his physicality, to be honest with you, and just had too many lapses in play and concentration. So I don't think we're losing massively in terms of like his defensive contributions or off the ball. I do think what he did give us for a large part of when he was fit and available was good, was very good. You have to take things into full context as well. And the starting point for Partey coming into the team was we had a midfield of Xhaka, Torreira, Guendouzi, Willock. I think Aaron Ramsey was still there. No, Aaron Ramsey must have been gone. Aaron Ramsey must have been gone. Yeah, Aaron Ramsey would have been gone. But yeah, it was bad. The starting point in terms of our midfield when Partey came into the team was bad. We were really struggling to progress play. We just didn't really have the players who could do it in the way that we could. We had a similar issue with Xhaka, who didn't look entirely comfortable receiving the ball on the turn, you know. So he was good going into defense to get it, but you know, with his back to the opposition, he didn't really seem comfortable. So Partey was, you know, a bit of a player who could receive the ball, very press resistant, could receive the ball on the half turn, on his back foot. He was comfortable progressing the ball with his carrying, but he was very good with some of his passing. So I don't want to dismiss or fail to acknowledge the starting point. It was good to begin with, but what we've seen is a lack of consistency because he's not been available anywhere near enough. And when it has mattered most, he hasn't delivered. And ultimately, when you think about what we've done or what we've lacked in that period of time, or what we've paid in terms of transfer fee and what we've paid in terms of wages for him, like, yeah, he signifies a period of the club where actually it's been near misses and not good enough. You know, he hasn't really had any achievements during his time at the club. So it's time to move on, man. Just move past that chapter. In terms of Norgaard, complete shock and surprise to me. I'm not going to lie to you. I couldn't have anticipated us signing or being interested in him. But actually, why does it not surprise me? Like, now that it's kind of like the initial shock factor is settled, why does it not surprise me? And actually, this is exactly the type of player, the type of profile who Arteta loves. And actually, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe it's me, because I'm looking for and hoping for something that we actually just won't do. Like, we know who this coach is. He showed us who he is for such a long period of time now. And actually, we're hoping for maybe a bit more poise, a bit more guile, a bit more panache. And actually, what he wants is your duel winners, you know. And he continues to show us that you have to win your duels. Like, it's not a joke. Everything we saw in All or Nothing 5-6 seasons ago is this is who the man is. So Norgaard, what I can't pretend that I watch Brentford a lot. But one thing that I have noticed is that, yeah, he's a tough tackler. He goes in, he reads play, He fights, he battles, he looks decent in the air, and he looks decent on the deck defensively. I'm not sure how accomplished technically he is. I've not known him to be a creative player, so I'm not sure what he's gonna offer in that regard, if that is what he's supposed to bring. But yeah, defensively, I think he's got, he's a bit of a different profile. But yeah, I was completely shocked, completely surprised. Can't believe that we've gone in for him. It looks like all in, the figure is something to the tune of £15 million, 15 million. That's like a base fee of 10 mil with add-ons that could reach up to 5 mil. And this is for a 31-year-old. What I know about him is he's rarely ever missed a game for Brentford in the 5 years that he's been here. But yeah, that's it, man. I can't really say I know. I know a lot about him, but I can't say I've watched Christian Norgaard a great deal. I'll be lying. I'll be lying sat here saying yeah. And whether I think it's a good deal or not, I don't know. I just think it's a bit underwhelming for me personally. I don't want to kind of place a grade on the deal until the end of the window. I'm applying these same rules for everyone. Like I've said, if keeping Partey means that it enables us to do big business come the end of the summer window, then I'm not going to be mad at it. It's the same if signing Norgaard for the fee, given the circumstances, means that we've adapted and we've signed him for a relatively cheap fee, but it means it enables us to really move the needle out wide or up front. In the grand scheme of things, I'm not going to be mad at it. I am just getting very frustrated because a lot of these targets seem uninspiring, and a lot of the targets, the open targets who seem to be in the know, in the public domain that we've been interested in, they seem to be coming off the board very quickly and very consistently. And in terms of quality, there's always players out there, but in terms of the top quality, what we need, players who are going to move the needle, I'm not sure. If we don't start to get some of the critical business done right now, I just think we just need to tee ourselves up for another disappointing summer, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I'll be interested to know what the contract length is for Norgaard. To be honest, I don't think that's
been 3 years.
I don't think that's been reported anywhere significantly. So I think, overall, I understand the logic behind it, right? So let me frame my thoughts in this way. Yeah. So I think let me frame my thoughts. So like I put a tweet out before any of the Ornstein bombs came out, right? Because it just seemed a bit. So when you get these articles, it's like Arsenal are looking at Agume, Christian Norgaard, and ex-player as potential, and I was just like, that name, it can't just be random. That it's too random a name for me to kind of ignore it. Do you get what I mean, right? Because that just comes from nowhere. Do you get what I mean? Right. But I don't know if I'm making sense.
You're bamboozled, my boy.
But you know what I mean? I hope I'm making sense here. But it's like, it's so random that I need to pass that link to get what I'm saying in my brain. Yeah. So it's almost like, when you read a list, you're like, why would we be linked with this guy? Maybe that's the name that you need to pay the most attention to, if that makes sense, right? And so I thought I put out a tweet. I don't believe it, but I think it would be an uninspiring and slightly boring signing, right? Because and I give you the reasons for it, right? I think the logic for it is clear. I think you're signing a big money player. I think there's been some reports here that Arteta would have liked to keep Jorginho initially, but Jorginho wanted to go to Brazil. Then when Jorginho confirmed he was going to leave, he wanted to keep Partey. And then when Partey decided he's going to leave, then you've now gone and brought in 31-year-old Christian Norgaard, Premier League. I think you're bringing in a big money signing who may or may not need some time to bed in. You look at your Rodriguez, you look at your Partey himself. When they've come from Spain, it's taken them a few, 6 months to get up to speed. I think Fabinho, when he came from, was it Sevilla he came from? before he went to Liverpool. It took him some time before he learned that six. Was it Monaco? Yeah, it was Monaco. You're right. Yeah, but it took him some time to get up to speed with that number 6 position in and out of the team. So I can see a scenario where Zubimendi doesn't necessarily hit the ground running. And, you want to back up that position with someone who knows the league, someone who gives you a level of performance that you think you can, very much rely on, right? Plus, he's played a lot of games, 300 career games, this, that, and the other, been in the Premier League for 5 seasons, this, that, and the other. That's fine. You look at his metrics, good defensively. I don't actually think he's much of a passer. I know there's a chart coming around of like progressive passing distance per touch, this, that, and the other. I think that's probably just a stylistic thing from the way Brentford play. They play very direct, play a lot of balls into the channels for, Mbuemo, your Wissers, played, and when Tony was here, they played very direct up to Tony as well. So, watching him, that wasn't kind of a notable thing that I, put down on my sheet of paper that, yeah, this guy's a really good passer, this, that, and the other. But I do think he does get around the pitch, get stuck in. And where I actually do think he's quite good is playing out of pressure, if that makes sense. Not necessarily him, beating a man, this, that, and the other, but a wall pass into him, he's then finding someone on a quick release and then moving to then receive the ball back for the 1-2 to get us out of, a team trying to press. He's quite a mover and shaker in that sense. But I think this guy's just like a steady Eddie. I don't think he pulls up trees, but that's a solid, what I would say, Premier League player, right? If I want to call a spade a spade. What, frankly, I would have liked us to do, and I hear the sort of the arguments that we've tried a Lokonga before, we've tried a Fabio Vieira before, this, that, and the other, is that kind of the right kind of move where you're going for some of these younger-ish players who don't necessarily have top 5 league experience. That's not worked out well for us. And I can see that angle as well, but my sort of retort to that is I think when we were signing those players, we didn't necessarily have the squad that could absorb some of those misses, right? So, when you are, I think, building a Norgaard 3 seasons ago would have made more sense than a Lokonga for me, right? Whereas now it's almost flipped, that you've got your Declan Rice in there, you've got some of these, more established guys. Like you look at the team, Saka's got 300 appearanries.
I would argue the opposite.
Nah, he's got 44 England caps, right? And I get it. You're saying that. I think you're probably going to say, Dan, the stakes are higher now.
Yeah,
right.
Higher.
The stakes are higher now.
When we had Lokonga coming in, like, what were the expectations? Relatively low. When Partey was missing games, people were like happy for Lokonga to come in, make mistakes. But that's not the case now. Like, I think the stakes are too high. But go on. I'll let you finish your point.
Yeah, the reason. Yeah, I'll let you come back to that. But the reason why I think it's the opposite is that if you look at the makeup of our squad now, right, you have more players who can absorb these guys, necessarily not necessarily needing to hit the ground running. Whereas I think before, when Lokonga is going to play lots of games, there's no one else. You get what I'm saying, right? You've got a Rice there. You've got a Miles Lewis-Skelly, right? You've got a Zubimendi. You've got an Odegaard. Everyone in this squad is vastly, vastly experienced. They're not young players anymore. And I think adding young players as your backups actually now makes more sense as the squad gets older, right? Rather than, adding older players at this present moment in time. Even someone like Martinelli, right? He must have 150 league apps, for Arsenal Football Club. So yes, he's 23, turning 24, but you signing a 21-year-old winger is calm. You don't need to sign a 28-year-old. You don't need the Trossard there to kind of add the experience, because these guys now are all vastly, vastly experienced. So, I look at it and say, Bukayo Saka's got more international caps than Norgaard. 8 years younger. So, is this squad actually lacking experience? I'm not sure that it is. You get what I'm saying? I think it lacks talent in certain areas. And what I would like us to see is maybe take more of these risks. So, you can go and get the next Baleba. you can go get the next Caicedo, right? And allow these men to maybe develop into the next top level thing. And that allows you to, make big sales. It allows you to move certain players on maybe a bit sooner than what you might, because a big bid comes in and you don't mind losing them. You get what I'm saying? So
okay, let me give you
the direction that I would like to go in. But yeah, Dan, you can respond.
Let me give you a different perspective on just some of the points you've made with regards to that younger player coming in. I think being Arsenal fans, no one is ever against that sort of wonder kid, young player coming in. That's sort of what a lot of Arsenal fans are accustomed to. What a lot of Arsenal fans like was their preferences. Sometimes you have to remove yourself from your preference of, I feel like a lot of Arsenal. I think if I had to check who plays Football Manager more than any other fan base, I'm sure Arsenal fans play Football Manager the most. And what they do is sign all the young players, all the top talents. Yeah, and that's how Arsenal were operating for a period of time. But that's not necessarily how all the top teams operate. And I think it's also about what is the need now. I said this last summer. Functionality over excitement with new signings for me. Consciousness over coochie. Yeah, because that Ogume, yes, he looks like a nice talent. He could be ready in a year or two, and he could be quite good. But our objectives are now. Our objectives are not next year or in 2 years. Yes, we will have objectives for that period as well, but we have immediate objectives now. And when we have someone like Rice maybe missing games, or Zubimendi struggling to adjust or missing games, getting that Aguma to come in is a risk. Quite frankly, the adaptation period, he will need that. I'm super confident that he will need time to adjust. I'm also confident that like the pace of the league, he'll be not accustomed to that. He's not played in England. He's played in Serie A. He's played in La Liga predominantly. The pace is very different. So, Norgaard is experienced in this league. I think he's a good player. As I said, I think he's a good player. I think actually he's a player that people on the radar, kind of goes under the radar. He's a good Premier League player, in my opinion. And I think we have got him for like a relatively low fee. And that's also, a part of the deal that entices me. Like, we're not paying 20-25 million for, a 30-year-old or 29-year-old. Because when I realized that Partey might be going, I started to think, I'm not sure if they'll do Ugumi. I actually was thinking, I'm not sure they're going to do the young player. I thought they'd go for someone like Sander Berge or something like that, which would be like a very expensive deal, I thought. So when the Norgaard thing all of a sudden came, I was like, oh. And then I saw the fee. Like, I know perhaps he said 15 million. I see somewhere else it's 11 million euros, which is like 9 million quid. So, like, financially, that fee
I said reported all in, including like bonuses up to. We know very rarely these deals go all the way up. I don't want to interrupt you too much. I just want to interject.
Whatever is the financial parameters for this deal are relatively low. I think his wages are reported to be around 40-50k at Brentford. He probably won't be like earning more than 100k at Arsenal, and he'll be a squad player. Partey on 200 or wanting 250 or whatever, that is a no. And also in terms of just fit, I think Agume maybe immediate fit is also a no. So you need to find the balance between it. And I think that signing is a decent solution, in my opinion. I always, every summer, I say I'm for the club signing experienced players in certain positions, especially in midfield. I believe we need to sign players that are experienced. And I know you were talking about platforming like the next Baleba. That's I'll look at it like, okay, they signed this Norgaard guy, knowing that in 2 years Skelly's ready to probably be the midfield starter. In my opinion, that's projection, obviously, but I'm thinking they signing this guy knowing and he's got a 2-year lifespan and like a shelf life, and then Ismail Skelly's time in that midfield. And I think they're building them up to play that role. And it doesn't necessarily put as much of a block in the way of Skelly playing midfield as maybe an Agume would. Do you know? So I'm not warming to the signing. I'm for the signing. Like every signing, I think he needs to perform when he plays. But I see the tactical fit. I see I can play in the single pivot. I can see him in the double pivot as well. I think I agree on the ball. I need to see probably a bit more on how he plays within our system. Our game parameters are very, very different to Brentford's. He can, yes, he plays forward with few touches because, as you said, that's their game. They hit it into the channels to and Mbeumo, Wissa, X, Y, and Z, and Kevin Charter. But so it's different at Arsenal. I do think he has good technical skills. And I think physically he's quite strong, and he's also threat for set pieces. So I don't know how, the Arsenal recruitment team would have looked at it and say, yeah, he fits like a glove for what we need. Maybe the age profile was a bit too much, but other than that, the parameters are fine. And financially, it's quite low risk.
In terms of the age profile as well, I do think it's relevant, like how many minutes he's actually played. Do you get in saying that? Because you can be an old 31 like Raheem Sterling, or you could be a young 31 like someone like a Virgil van Dijk, who they're not reaching the top level of the game until they're in the 22s, 23s. And I think with Norgaard, he falls into that latter category where he's got I think only 30 more senior appearances in his career than Saka. You get what I'm saying? So this ain't a guy with loads of miles in his legs. And it's funny, yeah, to me, Dan, it's funny because obviously perception, this, that, and the other. In the group chat, man will say, yeah, you're crashing out, about this, that, and the other, yeah. I'm not crashing out about anything to do with this signing.
Man, we're crashing out today, though.
Yeah. That's fine. Man we're definitely crashing out.
Who's crashing out?
The couple man were crashing out.
No. Let's have an honest conversation. I'm not
gonna name that. Shabs, are you an informant or something? Man, it's like let's name names.
I wasn't there. Don't tell me about informant. It's not me leaking stuff to the. You can't leak.
It might be you.
Leak stuff on Twitter.
It might be you. We don't know the culprit yet.
I'm just asking the question. I'm just asking the question. Are you going to answer my question or no?
Shabs, did you like Dennis Zakaria back in the day?
I think Dennis. Yeah. I might have called for Zakaria. I might have. Once upon a time.
Yeah. So I'm saying, is Norgaard not a similar profile?
Yeah, I would say so. We're just getting that kind of backup physical midfielder that can play a bit.
For me,
let me just quickly fit the context in which I was calling for Dennis Zakaria was when I think it was prior to Partey, when we were crying out for actual proper defensive midfielder when he was like 22, 23 years old. With Dennis Zakaria now, boy, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure about that. But yeah,
I just threw a little jab, but that's all.
No, it's fine.
I didn't need all that context.
I can hold it, man. Listen, I can hold it, bro. I got no issues, man. I can talk about my crimes. Can you talk about yours, brother?
Yes.
All right, then. We're good.
I'll snitch on myself if I have to.
I can see that.
Snitch on myself and take someone else down, I'll do it.
I can see that. Kamikaze. Anyway, go on, Cougs.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like,
we're talking about the age thing, right? Yeah.
It's not really a crash out worthy thing for me. This, I think.
Stop doing this politicianship right now.
No. This is let me
you in a group.
Let me outline my framework. Yeah. Let me outline my framework as well. Yeah. The way these men are understanding the framework of the deals, this and another. Yeah. I think to Shabs' point earlier about judging every signing at the end of the window, I think that is very correct, right? And this was a point I was trying to make in the group that, my focus this window has always been on the attackers, right? Every week I'm going to be there. I'm going to say, where are the attackers? Bring me the attackers. Man, I get impatient now. 25th of June. I think in previous summers we had certain signings wrapped up by this time. You can say what you want here, but fundamentally now, I think the business at the back end of the pitch, for the most part, is like 75% completed. Yeah. If you're saying we wanted a backup goalkeeper, we wanted Zubimendi, we needed either Partey to stay or to get that sort of backup DM sorted, that's done. Those are 3 signings locked, right? If you want to believe the here we goes and whatnot, yeah. There may be question marks over whether we bring a defender in, a left back. Well, that's one to watch. Next scouting piece, Jarrell Hato. People said he's in London, this, that, and the other. His agent. We're going to be watching that one closely. But in the forward areas now, when people are saying, I think the reporting is we want a left winger, we want a striker, and potentially we want a backup to Bukayo Saka, depending on outgoings, that last one. to be honest. That may or may not happen. So my focus is always going to be on those front two positions, because for me, I think that's the real priority. Zubimendi, I think, is a priority as well, but that, for all intents and purposes, has been wrapped since January, if you want to believe the Ornstein reports, this, that, and the other, which we all know we do believe. So the context within which I think this can be a crash out is if those other positions are not filled, right? Because we saw today, if you want to understand, they lodged a bid in the morning. That shit was wrapped before.
I knew this was going to come. Let's go.
Before 6 p.m., boy. It was wrapped before 6 p.m.
Go.
And so that's what I'm saying. That, like, look, I don't care about the speed on the day, this, that, and the other, but I'm saying when these men want to lock in and get that shit done, that shit gets done. There was no Tim Lewis there. There was no Tim Lewis there with his next bird's nest trim, telling people, if you want to up this, I'm going to need to go call this person. I'm going to need to go get that approved. You might need to run that up the chain. That shit got done. You get what I'm saying? So now I think the focus has to be on that front line, and getting our players ready for preseason as well. I think, I don't actually expect both attackers, if we are getting two attackers, to be done before preseason starts. I just don't see how realistic that is. But I think we do need one of them wrapped before the preseason tour starts, or at least before the first match, because I think it's absolutely crucial for just relationships perspective on the pitch, that these guys are working with the manager for as long as possible, getting to know their teammates, so that when it comes, because that start that we have in the league, it's not a joke thing, so that when that starts, Old Trafford away, that's a curtain raiser, a proper curtain raiser. You know what I'm saying? So, when that is happening, I need them man ready. You know what I'm saying? Ready for war. Ready for war.
Cooks, what deal? This is a hypothetical question, because I know you know the answer. What deal you think is easier to do? Norgaard for 9 million.
Oh yeah, I'm not disputing that. I'm not disputing that. I said I don't care about the time it takes them to do individual deals. I just need them to lock in.
But
you know what I'm saying?
But I wouldn't say names, but certain men be asking, why is this one taking so long? Why is this one going fast? And and you guys know why, because the deal parameters are vastly different financially, contextually. They're just different. Like, if you want Rodrigo, you're not going to get him tomorrow. That's not how it works. He needs to come to
unless he slapped the duffel bag. You get what I'm saying?
Well, Rodrigo needs to come to the realization that they don't want him. That needs to happen first. Then they need to have those conversations. Then they need to start negotiating. Norgaard, guys were questioning if it's a market opportunity. Why are you questioning everything now, bro? Like, we know what a market opportunity is. It is a player that you didn't think was available. Yesterday, I saw reports Spurs linked with this guy for 45 million quid. Today, we signed up for £9 million. Like, I mean, like, is that not a market opportunity, brother Cooks?
That wasn't my question, was it? Was that my question?
No. Oh, I saw someone ask the question. I saw you support that question by bro. Replying, bro.
I'm a cook any angle I can. You understand?
Either way, I feel like the crash out of Norgaard is not really necessary. And the only other point I was going to say on the young players thing, the young players angle, there's no guarantee that Agume is going to end up like Lokonga, which was a flop and actually had no resale value. That's one thing to consider. Like, Lokonga actually didn't end up having any resale value. There's still a player that we have. I think, has he been sold yet? It's probably coming back. So it's a player we can't get rid of because he's not been good enough.
I've got big question marks about that deal, right? Because I don't know what his wages are either, because it seems a bit bizarre to me that we can't move this guy on.
Yeah.
To be honest, it does seem very strange because, coming from Anderlecht, I'd expect him to be on relatively low wages. And, he did have a bit of a reputation, Belgian international. I find it bizarre that, we're only able to shift him on loan. So, I feel like his wages may be, relatively high for his profile in the game. Is the only thing that I can think. here.
He's also
to be honest.
25 now, you know. Lokonga's 25
Yeah,
years old.
yeah, he is. He
Yeah.
is.
It's a player that, you know, ultimately it didn't work out. And I'm not going to project and say Ogume is going to have the same faith, but there is a risk attached to this type of signing. If their player them don't end up developing the way you want, there's no resale value. You just end up loaning them out, hoping that one of the loan bangs and you'll be able to sell them. But like for what we need right now, we don't need a player that we hope bangs this season or next season, or if he doesn't, then we sell him on. We need someone that can help the team win now. Support the guys that are going to be starting. We know who's going to be starting if they're available. And that's what Norgaard fulfills, you know. So on that aspect, I'm fine with that signing. That's why I'm fine with that signing.
Yeah, to be honest with you, yeah, we can't be hypocritical because I think in terms of profile, the little I do know is that Norgaard looks and seems similar in terms of his playing profile to Ogume. So we can't say on the one hand, yeah, this looks like a calculated risk worth taking with Ogume, and then be super down and out on Norgaard. To be fair, my biggest thing with Norgaard is just that it feels uninspiring as a signing. But it's
why do you guys want to be inspired so much?
Do you know what it is, man? It's like
DMs, bro.
Do you know what it is?
I get it.
No, yeah, and again, you're right. For the profile, for the position, actually, it shouldn't matter because these players don't need to be remarkable. They don't need to be remarkable. I'm just frustrated if you look at the pattern of windows that we've had and consider the profile of players that have come in. So last summer, the profiles that we signed, Calafiori, absolutely fine, no issues with him in terms of his quality apart from his availability. Merino, a bit of an uninspiring signing, although I said Merino for 28 mil. I think if I can recall correctly saying at the time, it's not necessarily one that I would have done, but I understand why we went in for that profile, given his age, given his level of experience. Fine. And Merino actually saved us in many instances with his contributions, especially in the latter parts of the season. So all things considered, it's not bad, but he also wasn't great for large parts of the season. So you say, it was just about okay for the money that we spent. You look back the window before, we signed Rice in midfield. That was fantastic. I can't remember what other signings we done in midfield, if any at all, in that Rice window. The season before, Vieira, disappointing. The season before, Lokonga, disappointing. The season before, Partey, who, you know, we've already discussed, and yeah, Partey's definitely had good contributions, good things, good moments. But if you consider and fairly appraise him over the course of 5 seasons, it's been disappointing. So we're painting this picture of every window. We're signing players who are uninspiring. Now that I'm short forming it, you know, it's deeper than that, and it's, you know, I'm skimming the assessment. So don't take this as a complete or accurate assessment, because there are other players that we've of course signed in those windows. I'm only talking about the midfield profiles, but it is there is something about it on the one hand which feels, whether it is, I don't know, let it sink in, let me see, but there's something about it which feels a bit uninspiring, which feels a bit underwhelming. But I'm sure from the club's perspective, they'll see it as, boy, this is a shrewd piece of business. You know what I mean? And so I'm not mad at it either. Anyway, I jumped in off the back of the point that I think we are being a little bit hypocritical if we were open to, and a little bit biased if we were open to signing an Ogume and then take serious issues with Norgaard. Because when you consider it, all things, like, if it's an inexpensive deal, it doesn't restrict us financially. It's an easy deal to kind of get out of if it doesn't work out for the player, if it really doesn't work out. And actually, there is very little risk of the deal going wrong or turning out to be a bad deal, given his age, given the fee, given his history of availability, which is pretty reliable, and given the numbers he turns out, the deal represents low risk any way you want to slice it, to be honest with you. So I'm not mad at it. It was just a bit of a surprise and a bit underwhelming.
Yeah, fair play, man. Fair play. We've got a lot of questions as well. Right, so let's get to them because I think they cover off a few interesting topics. Right. So first question from Stina Swag. Why does Sean sign off his tweets like the end of an Hollywood film?
What do you mean? What did
you mean by that? So Sean asked for his postcode in response to that, and then the guy replied to God be the glory. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I get it now. Can't lie, man. Sean got to be careful out in these streets, man. These Minnesota accounts nearly crash his head, man.
Yeah, crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. Yeah. People on Twitter just cook for anything, man. They just cook for anything, though. So it is what it is, man. It is what it is. So Baitface Nate, he says we are currently on course for a -3 out of 10 window. What deals need to be done in order to bring back to positivity? Are you confident this will happen? I don't see it as a -3 out of 10 window, to be honest.
I only don't like Kepa so far, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Kepa.
I don't like the Kepa signing. I said before, I would have spent more on the goalkeeper and make it a younger one. That's the one position where I felt like take that risk, try get like a really young up and coming goalkeeper.
To be fair, who would you have got that you know of that's out there? Like just based on what you know, who you know.
Yeah,
I'm interested.
We tried to get Garcia.
That Garcia guy was
he went to Barca. So
yeah. I know.
In light of that, I do kind of understand. Maybe you want to keep your powder dry.
Two more that I liked. I liked Bolka. I know he didn't have a good year, and I also liked Svila, who's the Serbian goalkeeper. So those three I like. Yeah.
I like them both. I think with Bolka, I don't think Bolka at this stage of his career would have been happy to be primarily an understudy goalkeeper, and I think it's the right move for him to make to say, no, actually, I want to continue to go somewhere where I'm going to be the number one. And that's Villa as well. I like him. I think he's very good, but I think it's the same, to be honest with you. I think he kind of needs to play week in, week out. He's still young. He's still developing. In 3, 4, 5 years, he could be a goalkeeper he had a lot of hype and profile when he was younger, and then he's kind of gone quietly under the radar. I think 3, 4 years, he could be a goalkeeper with a lot more respect on his name again across Europe. I definitely like him, but he needs to play.
I like the ball cut. I don't think I've heard of the Svilla guy before. That Alvaro Valles as well moved to Betis on a free.
Yeah.
This window. So that would have been someone I looked at. I would have tried to wrap up, but it seemed that Betis done that quite quickly. Quite quickly. So it's interesting, but yeah, I disagree with you, Dan, on the sort of necessarily spending more money on that position. I would have
been happy to. That's what I'm saying. I would have been happy to. I get why they didn't. It's the same as the Norgaard approach, to be fair. At least there's consistency. But I was willing to. I was not against Aguma, to be fair. But you know, goalkeeper, I was quite adamant. I would have wanted a younger, potentially top level prospect there. But
I do think you need someone a bit more competent and you know, people are saying, oh, Kepa had a good year, this, that, and the other. Yeah, I don't rate that guy, man. I don't rate that guy. I'm sorry. You know, even in the games that I saw him for Bournemouth, you know, this guy's getting packed up from distance. You know, so I'm really hoping that
he doesn't play too much.
He doesn't have to play significant minutes, to be honest. I really hope that's not the case. And I think just on the Zubimendi signing alone, right? I don't think you can say the window's a -3 out of 10. I think, you know, to the point that was made in the chat earlier this week, or maybe on the weekend, that Lewis said, it's like, you know,
I agree with him.
This signing is a bit of a coup. You know, it is a coup. You know, if you look at around Europe, you know, a lot of teams wanted this player. We've managed to convince him to come and join, and he's a very good player. You know, shameless plug of the Patreon as well. If you don't think he's a very good player, go watch the tapes. You know, we did over an hour watching Zubimendi, seeing how he might fit. So, I expect him to play well for us. And I do think that is a good sign in a key position for us. So I don't think you can say the windows are -3 out of 10 personally, but I do think, this window will be judged by the quality of attackers that we decide to bring into the club. Yeah, so Camtana 25, similar vein. When is it time to crash out? Because it's not looking good, Brev.
Wait until the end of the window to see what business has been done. I agree with you, by the way. I think they should be looking to wrap up some of the business rather sooner than later. But then I think Rodrigo's probably a deal that's going to drag, like, because of the context and whatever. I do think, there's still some hope. It seems that Isaac can be moved on. But whatever that is, they need to wrap up some of this business early. We'll judge at the end of the window, and if there's not been a centre forward that's been signed and a left winger of adequate quality, then I think everyone is allowed to crash out. Especially given that they did fuck all in January, and basically said, we're going to do something in the summer, so they better do something in the summer. But right now, I don't think it's the time to crash out. I still think that if they sign, the adequate players, the right level, competent players late in the window, if they don't play the first game, we can still win that. We can win the first couple of games without them. Our team is strong enough. It's about getting the right players, in my opinion, but they also need to get them this time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. On the same context of crashing out, right? So Johan 14, he says, one potential signing that would make you all crash out. Yeah. Listen.
I know which one for me.
Listen, yeah, it's the same. It's the same. It's the one that we've actually been loosely linked, I would say, and I need it to stay loose.
Hey, you're a crazy man, Poogs, yeah. That's gonna get clipped up, and you're gonna go viral off that, bro. That is crazy.
I don't care, man.
I'm getting off this.
I hear it though, man.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Listen. If they bring Noni Madueke to my club, my head will be in the sky, bro.
Yeah,
my head will be absolutely in the sky.
I'm crashing for that one for sure. Ain't no fucking way, man. This will be like when Ramsdale got signed. I crashed out when Ramsdale got signed. No,
Ramsdale signing.
I'm too actually.
Ramsdale signing had my head in the sky, man. I can't lie to you. My head was in the sky. Jesus Christ.
That was crazy. Yeah, I think that's the one player for me. I mean, Garnacho, we haven't really been linked with.
God.
That was a loose link, but I don't think they'll sign him just because of his personality as well, how disruptive he is. So I think we're getting linked to a lot of players, but Madueke, there have been a couple stories now. That one will make me crash.
Garnacho's in the same bucket for me, to be honest.
Garnacho or Madueke would make me crash out, man.
That's straight head loss. I think I'll actually see red. Like there'll be blood in my eyes, bro. Oh my god. Jessica Black TV. She says, "How excited are y'all for Norgaard and with a Norgaard Merino pivot work?" Good grief.
He's taking a piss.
I think that's what we might see in the cup.
The cup games.
Yeah, in the cup games. So boy, I think
I ain't gonna lie, that's sick. I better play Fabio Vieira or some shit, man. That's
nasty work. But yeah, Norgaard Merino with Nwaneri ahead of them. Yeah, cook it, man. That's firing us to a League Cup. Yeah. That's firing us to a League Cup. Jeffrey Deontay, he says, surely Norgaard signing means we're going to go big for Isak with £150 million bid. Otherwise, makes no sense going for cheap buyers with only upside being Premier League experience. Because to save 10 million only to bring in Sesko is mental.
So what does he mean by saving 10 million?
think
Maybe the money that it will
maybe
cost
not
on
buying
getting
like a
someone else.
£25 million midfielder.
Yeah, that's how I heard it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't, I always said Ogumi would have been 25, basically. Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's how I heard it.
Or someone else,
And,
yeah.
I mean, for me, this is why I keep going back to we can only truly judge the success of these individual signings and we can only give an objective assessment of our transfer window at the end of the window. And then you can kind of give another one based on how the players who have been brought in and perform midway through the season and then again at the end of the season. Because for me, this is about, if this is part of a wider strategy, and it means that we've got Norgaard and Kepa for 15 mil, let's say, yeah, all in. And then Zubimendi, we've paid a bit more, but that, we've been able to structure the deal in a lot more of a flexible way. If that means that leaves 150M or 200M in the bank right now for us to go and crash out and bring in, I don't know, like a top striker, Gyökeres or a Sesko or a Isak, then we and Isak goes on to slap, then you say, boy, this is a good window. It's a good window. They've done the right thing. They strategized in the right way. And bringing a winger too, you say it's a good window. They strategized in the right way. They've done what they've needed to do. They've addressed all of the key issues or gaps in the squad. They've built the squad. It's stronger. This season, it gives us a better chance to fight on all fronts, so on and so on and so on. So you can justify it. If we do this, bear in mind we've done nothing in the summer. If we sign Norgaard, if we sign Kepa, Zubimendi, and if we don't land a top striker, if we don't land a top attacker who can move the needle, who offers us what it is that we're so clearly missing, then you have to look at it at the end of the window, even before the season really gets underway. You have to look at it as this is a bit of a failing. It's a bit of a shambles here, and there will be a crash out inevitably, So, and then, that crash out might be justified if the players underperform or fail to deliver or fail to meet expectation. But then that crash out will be people will dunk on them and spin on everyone that's crashed out. If, despite the crash out, those players actually go on to overperform and over-deliver and overpromise. So it's very difficult to kind of judge it off the back of these individual movements. That's to be honest with you, and that's why I prefer to wait and see how we plan out the rest of the window.
This is why I say
that we're not getting players in earlier.
Over excitement, because you don't know until you see.
Yeah,
because some of these players, I think people either overrate, underrate. Until you see them play for the red and white, that's when you should make the judgment. We can judge the window, as he said at the end. I agree with that. They need to get something centre forward and left wing. I'm not gonna lie, this trust extension might make me a small crash out if that left winger don't come. That's gonna end up to an exaggerated crash out. But yeah, we'll have to see what they do. But right now I think it's okay. Get this fucking business done. There's no Edu to hide behind that. Birds has had ample time. It's not like, oh yeah, Edu hasn't.
And he's got pedigree as well.
He's got a lot of pedigree. So yeah, there really is. He's there and he's meant to maneuver and make things happen. So yeah, part of his role as well, because I think people attribute a lot of responsibility to Arteta. Say Arteta wants this, Arteta wants that. Like part of Berta's role is also managing Arteta and basically saying this is what we're going to be doing, which is things that Edu didn't do well enough, I think, at times. So if you're Berta, you're coming from Atletico Madrid, I'm sure they're on board with a lot of things. They'll have some disagreements, but they'll come to an agreed approach and a solution on things. But part of him is also managing Arteta and his demands to build the squad in the right way to win. So I think both the manager and the sporting director need to be judged adequately.
Yeah, I agree. To be honest, so it's interesting you said that about sort of where people direct criticism, because the next question from Nasser_Lee says KSE is getting a lot of criticism, but it should be 100% directed at Arteta, who keeps buying defenders and DMs every summer. He pushed the club to sign Calafiori, while in the same summer, PSG signed Doué for a similar fee. They've always backed him. See the Rice transfer.
I don't think they always backed him though. And Jan, he didn't get what he wanted.
No,
and I don't think he got what he wanted last summer either.
Yeah, and I think the reason why I think KSE deserve criticism is I do not think last summer went how the manager wanted it to go in the slightest. I just can't rationalize that in terms of how he finished the season, the comments that he's made about how he wants to improve the team, this, that, and the other. Where I do direct criticism is probably in prioritization, number one, and also having alternative players if you're not able to get your number one target. I think what we've seen so far is actually that's worked quite well for us to date. And when you talk about we didn't get Vlahovic, but then we end up with I think Gabriel Jesus in the summer. 6 months later, you can judge that signing however you want, but I personally think that's a good alternative at the time. You don't get your Mudryk, then you go get Trossard. You don't get Caicedo, you go get Jorginho. I think these are good pivots, which can be praised at the time. And I feel like last summer we maybe pushed a bit too much to get the number one. And if the number one's not coming, I'm not going to get anyone. I think certain circumstances that can work out for you if, eventually you're going to be able to land those guys. But for me, I think it wasn't great discernment in terms of the, if you want to believe the reports, it was Nico Williams or no one, right? I'm not sure that is the, necessary correct approach to take with a player like Nico Williams, especially when now, it's transpiring. It doesn't really look like he was that on it to come, at any point. Ended up in Barcelona, which I think the reporting was last summer was his priority as well, right? So, I think the main criticism I have of last summer is there wasn't enough of the sufficient pivoting to potentially other targets, and now the window's gone. And the second criticism that I have of last summer is big man Ting. Why are we doing one in, one out when we are so close? I said this at the time, Dan. It's like people are saying, "Oh, he spent this much money. Oh, why should KSE give him more money?" Because we're close to winning. You keep spending. You actually keep spending. And at any point, if the owner says, "I don't want to support you with more funds," then that means you do not have faith in your manager anymore. Yeah. I don't think you can do both, right? If you have faith in your guy's asking for peas, your guy's telling you, "This is what I need to complete the team. This is what I need to move forward." If you're not willing to give him the money, then you don't believe in him. You don't.
Yeah. That's not how the Conquers operate, though.
And the thing is, you can't really question why.
Sorry, Shabs, which is what you can go give your point after. But I think my point is relevant, which is why I think criticism of them is also valid. You can't say Arteta or Edu criticism at all parties is valid, and there has to be the criticism at them as well, because they clearly didn't release the funds last summer the way Edu and Arteta wanted them to, and they also didn't in January. So yeah. For me, I was just saying, you can't ask that question. Why should you continue to back the manager? This is literally football. Season on season, the majority of managers get backed. When managers don't get backed, they get sacked, and a new manager gets brought in. And what happens? They get money, they get funding to bring players in that they would like. So it's literally the way that football goes. He's the coach. He's been the head coach for some time. He's literally built the squad. It's exactly as you said, Cougs. He's built the squad to this point.
he needs to be given every opportunity to complete the squad. It's frustrating because for me, with the spends, with the same windows, that Arteta's had, I think we could have completed the squad with the money that has been, with how the resource that has been available has been allocated. This squad could have easily been completed. There have been some poor picks. There have been some signings which have derailed some stuff. There have been some decisions made where players have been held onto for too long, where they should have been released, which would have freed up some assets, some resource, or I'm anticipating and assuming it would have freed up some assets, some resource, some ability to kind of maneuver. Holding's an example of that. We held on to him for too long. Mari held on to him for too long. Should have never signed him. Nketiah, held on to Nketiah for too long. Vieira, we shouldn't have signed him, to be honest with you. That was the wrong deal, the wrong business to make. Lokonga, kind of understand it for the stage that we were at, but it's not worked. We should have got rid of him. You know, there are other players as well. I'm really just glossing over.
Everyone makes these mistakes though, so I think we always kind of like in our world where we like looking at Arsenal, scrutinizing these things very heavily. Like Man City make loads of these mistakes. You know, United, Liverpool, Chelsea, like everyone makes these. It's
true.
Not always work.
It's true, but I think ours have been. Well, I'm most concerned with us. To be fair, I don't give a shit. In fact, I would encourage.
That's the business.
It is the business. I do think that we are particularly bad at selling players. We're particularly bad at extracting value for players. We're particularly bad at making certain decisions at the right moments. I look at Liverpool by way of comparison, who have made £68 million in player sales so far this window, you know, and it's early doors. Now, half of that is on Kwanzaa fee, but they also got money.
Which is that deal's money laundering, by the way.
Yeah, that deal was money, but money laundering. You said, sorry. Yeah, maybe it is fair enough. Of course, Verts goes one way, he goes the other way, but they've pulled in 68 million euros. You know, so Kelleher's gone. They made a couple mil off of one of those defenders. I can't remember who. Might have gone Nottingham Forest. They've got some money for the Trent deal, 10 mil. Fair enough. We're going to lose him for free. Real Madrid said, actually, we'll slap you 10 mil so we can use him now. Cool. Fair enough. And then Kwanzaa. So these are really nothing. Kelleher, fine. He played a bit. Kwanzaa, fine. He played a bit. Trent was always going to go for free. But these are really like big part players. Let's be honest, for the majority of them, with the exception of Trent. And still, they've been able to make good money for that. Money is going to help them. You know, that money is absolutely going to help them in the grand scheme for, even if it's just balancing the books, you know, given the window that they've had where they've spent, 100 and whatever million M's on Verts and whatnot. That money is going to help them massively. And this is before we even get to the possibility of selling players who are closely connected with the squad. Like Harvey Elliott might be on the market because he wants to play more football. Nunez might be on the market. What's his name? The Italian guy. What's his name? Chiesa. He is wanting to go back.
They ain't getting no money for that guy, bro.
They might not get money for Chiesa, but they'll free up wages as well. So it's my point is, money or not, it's about the opportune time to release players. So every club, you're right. There are issues with lots of clubs, but a lot of these clubs are just better at doing it, in my opinion, than we are. So the impact, let me just finish. So that has an impact on us. Because we have sometimes bloated squads with players who lack the requisite quality because we're holding on to these guys, you know, or we're holding on to these guys and not utilizing these guys. And that for me is something that could very easily improve. That for me is something that should improve. You know, that's the point being made here. That's kind of how we started and got onto this.
I agree that the club needs to get better at selling, but then I look at what Liverpool sold this year, and Kwanzaa is one of the deals. Last year they sold 2 players, made 40 million. We made more than them last year selling players. So I don't think it's too dissimilar. Ultimately, they've been you know,
I don't think
close
you
to
can.
success.
I
Also,
don't think you can look at it. I don't think you can look at it in 1 year isolation.
Yeah.
no,
That's
I'm explaining to you now why they have more assets, because they have been successful for a longer period than we have. We've been successful, or like at least close enough to being successful for a couple seasons now, 3 seasons, you could say. Liverpool have been there 6, 7 years. So in that period, they have acquired assets, loaned them out. And if you're maintaining and you're staying at the top, the value of these assets doesn't drop to the level where we were. When we were 5th and 6th, shifting a Guendouzi is not as easy as, you know, they're shifting flipping Fabio Carvalho for 20 million, you know, because he's on their books. So that's going to be a consequence of being successful or being close to being successful. That's something that it's a delayed effect that if Arsenal continue being good, you'll see on some of the players that we're getting, if they're younger, if some of the players that are coming through that we're selling. That's my point on that. And then I also feel like, apart from Chelsea, who is making a lot of money selling? Well, Spurs, I don't really think they are, to be honest. They spend more than us as well. I don't think they sell much more than us. I think it's similar ballpark. I think Chelsea are the outlier. City are backed by estates who basically have infinitive funds. They spend 200 million in Jan and are spending another 200 million now. Like, no other club really operates like that. So they are a bit of an outlier. So I think, apart from looking at the Chelsea model and saying they are doing really well on selling and like getting players in quickly and out quickly, I don't think we're too different or far off the other teams, to be honest. We spend in a similar ballpark to them as well. What the club needs to do is be more aggressive, invest more. It's the time to invest. We are closer than Spurs. We are closer than Chelsea. How comes they are getting more funds to invest than us? Liverpool fans should actually be asking the same thing, but they've been quite good with their investments, so fair play. But they've invested even less than us. But what they should be doing is invest more. That's what we should be asking. Asking to sell better. Man, fuck that. Put some more money in. Buy some more players. Get some more players. Get some more assets.
It's both, man. They have more
they go
money
hand
in
in
because
hand.
they sell better. Like
We go hand in hand, but we need to put more of an expectation of them putting more money in rather than
And I agree
better.
with that. And I agree with that as well.
That's my prioritization.
I agree with that as well, right? And this was part of the discussion that we were having the other day, is that, you know, we should never, I don't agree with this whole we're hamstrung with this guy attitude, yeah, because I'm just like, nah, go and buy someone else. This is what I'm saying. If Gyökeres comes and he flops, right, he doesn't hit the heights that we think he's supposed to hit, go buy another striker, bro. Like, this whole thing that, you know, Gabriel Jesus now, he's probably gonna be sold with what, a year left on his contract? Have we not known since season 2 that this guy was probably not going to be the number 9 to fire us to a league title? The same thing with Kai Havertz that I think we're kind of doing now, is saying this guy's had what, a year and a half as our main striker. Do we think he's good enough? No, I don't. We go and buy a striker. And I think you actually have to keep doing that until you get the guy that bangs in that position and you go sign the next one. And this whole thing that, we signed Nicolas Pepe for £72 million, and, you know, we were hamstrung with him, therefore we can't get this next signing wrong, or we can't get this next signing. Yeah, these signings, we need to get them right, of course, because we have targets that we need to achieve on the pitch. But things happen, they don't go right. They sometimes a player doesn't hit the heights. Boom, go invest again. Go again. And we've been doing it for defenders. We've been doing it for DMs or whoever. We've been doing it for goalkeepers. We need to do that for all the other positions as well. You know, until you get the right guy and the right Donny there that you trust and you back, you go and you keep investing. You get what I'm saying? So I'm looking at this here and seeing that, you know, we basically spent I think a similar amount on fullbacks, or more on fullbacks, than we have on attackers. So yeah, I think yeah, that's where I land on that one there. There's a couple more questions.
By the way, in the last 5 years, only one time Liverpool have sold more, made more in sales than us. In the last 5 years.
Do you think they're going to make more sales than us this year?
think they might sell Jones or Harvey Elliott. But in the last 5-6 years, only once. Yeah, Nunes maybe. And the last, that's my point. When we're saying they sell better, we're actually, it's very similar on what we're selling and what they're selling. The numbers, we've actually outsold them over the last 5-6 years. They only outsold us in one window. That was quite a big difference. Where I think they made like 18, we made like 20 million. The rest have been quite close, and we've outsold them. So what I'm saying is not mad. Like, we are operating similarly to Liverpool, and they have had better assets and better players in the last 5-6 years.
What's the numbers though? Are we talking here? Because
I just looked at year by year, and only 1 year they sold more.
Yeah, because for me, I don't like to.
This is what I'm saying. This whole selling thing is not enough for me. Like, it's not. The club needs to put more money in.
I definitely hear you, right? I definitely hear you on that, because but I do think it is linked, because if you look at it, I think the last 5 years, I think it's a nice point. But if you look at it, you know, and you're talking about Liverpool being good for the last 6 or 7 seasons, their sort of good period kicked off with essentially 2 major sales that allowed them to invest in the team drastically. And then from there, their squad has been, you know, relatively fixed, right? And I look at it and say the last 10 years, right? The quality of players that we've had leave our club, right, I think is of a similar standard. When you look at, you know, fine, they lost Suarez and Coutinho, I think. Outside of that, you know, we've lost Danny Welbeck, Aaron Ramsey, Santi Cazorla, Aubameyang, Lacazette. We didn't get a fee for any of these men, right? And then you talk about some of the guys.
And that is wild that we didn't get any fees for these guys, and still ended up selling more than Liverpool in 6 out of like 7 years.
But this is my point. Like that is something that is hamstringing us. Number one, to Shabs' point around, we're not selling these guys at opportune moments. Yeah, even someone like Thomas Partey. Yeah, we got Saudi bids for this guy last summer,
last season.
And now he's leaving for free. You get what I'm saying? Because the manager wanted him to stay, this, that, and the other, right? So, you know, or he wanted to stay, this, that, and the other. So, you know, I look at it and say, like, look, Gabriel Jesus should have been on the chopping block, summer gone, but we're talking about fire in his belly. You get what I'm saying? And now he's got an ACL. We're probably not going to be able to get a fee for him. He's probably end up going to go back to Brazil. All of this is linked, because that is 260K off the wage bill. Yeah, so I think you can turn around and say, yeah, we're selling similar amounts, this, that, and the other. But I'm pretty sure the value of what they've got will probably be higher, you know, for some of themselves.
And I looked overall. In the last 6 years, they've only in 1 year sold more, and like comparing each window, each summer, they've made more in sales. That window, yeah, it was a big difference. I think they made 80, we made like 20. The rest, it was always marginal. So when you then add up the numbers, it probably is a lot closer than you think it is. Even if that one window takes them slightly over us, or what our accumulated fee slightly takes them over, it's not enough of an excuse to say we need to sell better. That point needs to be done now. The squad is in a good shape. Yeah, we have assets that if we wanted to sell them, we could make money off them. You know, it shouldn't hamstring us to move on certain targets. I don't want to hear that excuse me, because people still make that argument, which I'm not hearing it. I'm not hearing it.
I'm not making an argument. Let me just be clear. But I think let me just be clear, because fundamentally, record revenues, Champions League money, TV money, all of this stuff, new partnerships.
I think that not having Champions League is what hamstrung us more than sales. Not having sporting success.
New partnerships, all of this. Yeah, I agree in that sense that, yeah, it's not an excuse, but I think it's still a vast area of improvement for the backroom staff. And I think it's going to be one of the key, I think it's going to be one of the key metrics that we judge Berta on, is extracting value from some of these.
I agree. We need
some of these players.
We need to sell players that people don't necessarily always want to leave. Right? Arsenal fans seem to have a real bond with players. Oh, he's up for sale, don't sell him. Like it happened with Partey as well. You know, big part of the fan base didn't want him to go mid-season. They were advocating for him to get a new contract. People still saying he should have got a new contract because he's better than Norgaard. And like sometimes you just got to move on, and you need to move on faster than we have done in the past.
There are loads of questions here, right? So there are two that I do want to touch on because I think they're quite interesting. So Shaggy P8, shout out him. He says, seen some links to Morgan Rogers over the last week. What do you guys think of him at left wing? Not the archetypal left winger, but he has elite running power and ball carrying, something that we sorely lack.
I think Rogers, he played as a left winger. That was his position coming through. That's what I remember of him, and I think he's been utilized differently. And fair enough. I think for me, there's a flexibility there. I wouldn't be against. I personally wouldn't be against the deal, but that deal has to be at the right fee for me. You know, I think paying big
What's
money.
the right fee?
I think 45-50, sub 45-50 mil. I'm okay with it. I think everything above 50 mil, it gets more riskier because he's still young and up and coming talent. You could argue about paying for potential, but he's someone where also there are not guarantees over his outputs at this stage. He's not the finished article. So if we're saying we're going to sign him to be our starting winger at left wing, it needs to be someone who will hit the ground running and who will produce. You know, and I'm not sure over his ability to consistently produce at this moment in time. So, yeah, I'm not saying that. I like his flexibility. I think there's a lot of upside for him. I always say you have to account for the team he's playing in currently and the tactical setup, the team that he will be moving into, which is us, and the tactical setup. We have to account for coaching, and we have to also try and account, and it's an estimated guess, but we have to project how the player might improve. So I'm trying to consider him in the context that if we sign him, I think, what is he, 22, 23? I'm trying to consider what player will he be 2 years from now? What player will he be next season? What player will he be 2 seasons from now? He'll be 25. I think, yeah, he could hit something where he explodes into some really good form, some really consistent form. He could be someone who's really powerful and really dominant in the league. But yeah, the more money we spend on him, the bigger risk I think the deal represents, basically.
I like Rogers personally.
Yeah,
I think he adds skills we don't necessarily have in the team. I can't say I've watched too many games of him on the left wing, though, to be honest. But I would like him as an option for our attack personally.
That's the question mark with him for me, the fit. But his skill, he's got skills, and I feel like this season, I don't know how many goals he scored, like 9, 10 goals. I think he got like 8, 9 assists as well. He's put up pretty decent numbers. He is a threat. Whenever he gets the ball, he is a threat. I can see how that translates well in our game. If he's in the right zones and takes risks, it's a bit more smart when he takes his risks. But I feel like he has a bit more. I like the personality in players that feel like it's their responsibility to take the game to the opposition. And he does have those traits. I would definitely be for Rogers. Just question marks of a foot on left wing.
What would you spend on him? What fee would you?
I reckon it would have to be at least a 60 piece. Like, he's 22 years old, English. He's playing for Villa. Maybe we can get him a bit under market, and I think that's market value. Like, anything above that is probably you're paying slightly over. But you've seen players like Brennan Johnson go for 50, Richarlison go for 50. Like, I feel like Rogers is way better than these guys. Way, way better. So it's difficult to say, even if it's like a 70 piece, it's like you're still probably getting, you know, a very, very talented player for just slightly above what you ideally would pay.
He got eight goals, 10 assists in the league, 4 goals, 2 assists in the Champions League.
Bro,
that's a good return.
Did Rodrigo get that?
In previous seasons, not this year.
Boy. boy.
Yeah, 12-12, all comps that matter anyway. So I think, so yeah, I personally would like him as a tool in the toolbox. Some of these games where we play these deeper blocks, yeah, why not chuck him on, or give him a try next to Odegaard instead of Odegaard as well. Try dribble, run through, destabilize some of these, troublesome blocks, to be honest. So yeah, I like his tools personally. I think Rodgers is a good player. I think he's very eye catching as well. From the moment he's touched down in Prem, that kind of running power and ability to beat guys. To be honest, I put him in that category of him and Eze, Xavi Simons, where they're sort of their midfielders before they're wingers, but they can still bring something to the team from the wide areas, and they can play multiple positions, right? So yeah. I think Rodgers played right wing against when he played against us, right? Obviously, Lewis Skelly locked him up. So that's a player. I think the profile is something that we do need in the team.
Yeah, because his dribbling is so clean, because technically he's quite clean, he can quite easily, quite comfortably just dribble past players and delete, man, in the way that when we've watched the Eze tapes, when we've looked at Eze, it is very similar. So that's a good comparison. What would you spend on, what would be your cut-off point in terms of money spent on him?
I think if you believe in the reports on Villa's PSR, I think you have to try and get him in that, sort of the 50 million mark. Whether that's realistic, they'll probably do some, more dealings with Newcastle, that kind of thing. The Elliot Anderson type, where, I'm going to sell you this. They'll probably sell like Illing Jr. or something like that to Newcastle for 25 mil to give them room and all of this stuff, right? So, or is it Ireg Bonham or whoever it is they got from Juve. So I don't know if they'll be willing to do a cheap deal for Rodgers, but I think you have to try, and I do think he probably won't be going for less than 60 mil. And I think if you're getting into those realms of your 60, 70 mils, just go bring Eze, man. Just go bring Eze, is what I would say.
Yeah. Fair enough. Even though Eze's age, Eze's what, 27 now?
He's going to be 27 end of this month, I think. But
okay.
I think that's calm, man.
He's not 60, 70 mil on the 27-year-old rather than the 50.
Yeah, because again, it's the minutes and the legs thing, right? For me, like Eze's not really. He's not played in Europe.
I like the player, by the way. I'm just teasing that.
Yeah. Eze, relax,
Auntie.
Relax.
So you want to tell us, Auntie?
Eze,
I like the player.
Eze spent a lot of time in the lower leagues.
Very cold, isn't it?
Yeah, he spent a lot of time in lower leagues. He's not really played European football that many. In any seasons, I don't think, Eze. So I don't think it's an old 27. I think that's a young 27, man. He's come to the Prem at 22, 23. Been here for 4 or 5 years now, doing his thing. I think he's given you a solid 3-4 seasons, Eze, before you start seeing declines there. And 3-4 seasons out of a player for £68 million, I think his release clause is. That's very calm to me. Very calm. And last question. There are a couple more, but we've been going for a while. And it says, this is from Francis and Yaneme. He says, Pep recently said that next season he wants his team to play faster. It seems he's clocked what the main issue holding back his possession-based tactic. Do y'all think this is also what Arteta needs in order to get over the finish line? Do you think he has the players for this? Interesting. I don't think City's issue last season was playing quickly at all. I just thought they were very, very susceptible to counters, to be honest. They created... Yeah, they played a lot. They still created a lot of chances. I think Haaland had an off year. Their wingers weren't as productive as what they required them to be. And they missed a bit of Kevin De Bruyne's creativity that he
And
normally
Rodri.
provides. Yeah, and Rodri. So yeah, I'm not sure I agree about the speed of play personally. I think that's more of an issue for Arsenal. I can't lie to you. I don't think City had the same concerns in that respect. But yeah, I think Zubimendi helps that in a big way. I actually think Norgaard probably helps that in a big way. I don't think that's a guy that takes loads of touches on the ball either, if he's playing. And hopefully the forwards we bring help that too, if they are not, shot shy when we get into some of these positions. Firstly, so remains to be seen. What you guys' thoughts on speed of play and the profiles that we have?
But we need, for me, in my view, we need more pieces. So, yeah, I think it's exactly what you said. I think it's a much broader issue for us than it is for City. I think City, for me, you could say Savinho's not the level or whatever. One thing he is quick. Marmoush is quick. Oland's quick. Doku's quick. Yeah, Foden, I wouldn't categorize as like a top athlete, but I also wouldn't say he's slow. I think when he needs to get some shift, he can do that. So yeah, whereas for me, I'm looking at it really is I think Havertz is deceptively quick. I think Havertz has got what I call footballer's pace. He probably doesn't look like he can get there, but he genuinely does get there. And Havertz is quite an underrated strong runner as well. Saka is quick, not blistering pace, but he's quick. Martinelli is very quick. Outside of them three, I don't think there's a lot. Rice can cover ground, but I wouldn't. Rice can cover a lot of ground, but I wouldn't describe or typify Rice as someone who's particularly quick. Not saying he's slow. Trossard for me is not quick. Yeah, Ethan has got quick movement. Ethan's a quick mover. But in terms of sprints over like 30, 40 yards, I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure. So yeah, I think we definitely, and then like we need to speed up our play because a lot of our play is like one dimensional. So I think Zubi definitely helps with that. Zubi, I think when we watch the Patreon tapes as well, but I've also said for a little while, Zubi is someone who I think is very capable of hitting a quick switch out to the flanks. I think he's got that pass on deck. I think that helps Martinelli's game. If we do start with Martinelli, I think that helps the game if whoever is brought in to play left wing for us. Absolutely. I think it helps Saka as well in terms of quick releases into his runs, and Norgaard as well. I think one thing we do know, maybe it's because of Brentford's style, but Brentford are a lot more direct, go from back to front quickly. So I think in games where he's asked to deputise, will come in. And there will be games where he and Zubimendi are both on the pitch as well. Let's not forget, I think he can hit the ball and move the ball forward quickly as well. So for me, it's really who we bring in up front as centre forward and who we bring in on left wing will only enhance that. And I think it's needed.
I think a big thing will be, and I think I'll predict we see a big change in the pace that we play because Thomas Partey doesn't start anymore. Because in the games we played quick last year, Jorginho played. And we all said, oh, yeah, the passing is crisper, it's moving faster. I think, the effect of him on our game, I think will become more clear next season. So, yeah, let's see. Because I think on the ball, he didn't give us what he had before. And off the ball, he was shocking, really. It's because he is a good football technique. Like when he's good, he's fantastic. He wasn't good often last season, but he's still a good player on the eye. So, he still looks like he's like doing decent stuff, but really the speed of the things are slow, in my opinion. Execution, sometimes he turned down a lot of passes that he didn't in previous seasons. Less risk taking. So when you just watch him, you think, oh, Partey's doing all right, because he doesn't ever look really shit unless it's in transition. But what is he actually doing? Is he affecting the game? Is he getting there forward? Like people don't make those they don't view him in that lens because they just assume he does it because he's aesthetically pleasing on the eye to watch. But if it's a Rice, people are like, oh, where's the forward passes? Meanwhile, Rice has slapped more forward passes in this game than Partey. But people don't notice that. So I feel like when you see Zubimendi coming next season, and granted he needs to play well, we will see a difference. Because I saw that difference with Jorginho last year. So yeah.
I agree. Guys, I don't know how we managed to stretch an hour 40 talking about this bum Partey and a Christian Norgaard signing, but we've done it, man. So I hope you listeners enjoyed. I'm going to leave it there. Shabs, Sushi, thanks for joining me. Listeners, if you haven't subscribed to the Patreon, make sure you go check that out. As I said, Christian Norgaard looks to be landing in N5, so the tape
You need you on the tapes, brother.
very, very shortly. Listen. Whether I'm there or not, I'll decide later. To be honest, I'll decide later. I probably do want to watch it. To be honest, I do. Yeah. I need to watch the Agume tapes as well. I haven't had time to watch them since you guys did that. I think it was Khalil and Lewis did those tapes earlier this week. So I need to look into those just for research purposes. And then I think Jarrell Hato probably next on the list. Morgan Rogers, some links to him seem to be bubbling, so he'll be on the list as well. And I think we need to redo Victor Gyökeres as well. To be honest, so there's plenty of Patreon content coming out, as well as a few more ideas that we've got loading in the chamber too. But otherwise, guys, thanks for joining me. Sushi Shabs, take it easy, stay blessed. Peace.
Safe.
Peace.
Yo, when I spit bars in the rain, man, I go hard like Santan.